well. Welcome everybody, kia ora koutou. I'm Daughter from the Zero Waste Network, and we've got this amazing international panel happening here this morning. It's my job to kind of welcome everybody and explain a little bit about both the event and also the session today, and then I'm going to hand over to Richard Anthony, who is going to be the moderator for this session. So yeah, this is day 2 of our Zero Waste World Summit, which is the first time we've done this. And I mentioned yesterday that the kind of beginnings of this event was a conversation with these guys around whether or not we should host a Zero Waste International Alliance event in New Zealand. And the planning quickly, with COVID in place, turned into doing it online. But it's really, amazing that we can connect internationally with these great minds. And, I think we've got a shared vision of a zero waste world, and that looks really different in different places. So it's exciting today to be able to talk about an issue that is very important. So that's organics, but with this international perspective. I also need to do a thing, which is thank our sponsors and our supporters. So in addition to the Zero Waste International Alliance, Gaia has also supported with giving us access to one of their panel discussions that will be played on Sunday. And we've also got 4 sponsors. So they are Auckland Council, Rothbury Insurance Brokers, Waste Not Consulting, and Envision. And those groups are all very different, but they work with the Zero Waste Network in a lot of ways and have done for a long time. So I will I will add into the chat some more information about each of our sponsors. And I think it's just really amazing that those guys have all, in the climate that we're in today, that they've all supported this event, and it means that this event can be free. So everybody can join, and all of the material will go online to the Summit website and be available for use forever, potentially. So thank you to our sponsors. So today's session is about organics, and so at the moment we've got 3 panelists, but we have got another one joining us. I'm just going to hand over to Rick. So Rick is the president of the Zero Waste International Alliance and is a principal of Richard Anthony Associates, which is a consultancy firm that focuses on zero waste planning. He's worked on resource conservation and recovery plans for over 40 years and is reasonably famous for that. Like all of my board kind of know Rick for all of the work he's done for such a long time. And he's also a former Department of Public Works solid waste manager in both Fresno County and San Diego in California. So over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Dorothy. I appreciate that. Hi, New Zealand. How you doing? Rick Anthony, San Diego, California. I'm glad to be able to come to your conference. I didn't have to spend 14 hours on a plane, and we're there. I missed the hugs, but I think in a lot of ways we'll be able to bring information right to your face that you might not have been able to have. So I appreciate that. Zero Waste International Alliance is actually, I throw a shout out to Warren Snow from New Zealand, who probably in my mind is the father of zero waste. He put together a program back in the turn of the century to get out money to small townships in New Zealand to get to zero waste. We were there looking at that and liked the idea and took it around. He and I met in Penang, Malaysia, where we met with Gaia to talk about what to do about incineration. And we all agreed that zero waste would be the positive form. So in that realm, we've been working for the last 20 years, and we have zero waste from all over the world. Now with me today is Ana Carvalho, who's been working with the city of San Diego in the area of organics. She's a pioneer in this area. She now works for BioCycle magazine as a writer. And then Leslie Lukacs, who's been with us we went to China back in 2002, where we talked about zero waste in China. Leslie's worked as a consultant. Now she's the head of a solid waste management authority in Sonoma County. So we have some interesting speakers. at 9:05 European time. I'm sorry, 12:05. Enzo Favino will come in from Italy. Enzo is the rock star in organics in Europe. He'll lay out where they are now, how they're going, and all the different applications. Meanwhile, I just want to talk a little bit about the theory. Where is that sucker? There it is. Okay, how about that one? For some reason. You know, we practiced this too.
I have a copy of yours if you need me to share it.
Do it.
Okay. You keep trying. I'll just get my files. There we go.
I'm sorry, and there's about a lot of people on there.
That's okay. I found it. So let me share my screen.
Let me get off here. Can you unshare me? Because I don't seem to be able to do that either.
Share.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, go to the beginning. Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's probably not amazing for everybody to see. So sorry about that. And guys, I will make these PowerPoints available on the website afterwards. All
right. So I got about 10 minutes to go through this, and I want to give you some chance to talk. And basically, it's the theory of where we're at. Let's go back to the first slide, though.
Sorry, it's
we call it cool. We came up with this maybe about 10 years ago, compostable organics out of the landfill by 2012, and we started to broadcast this around, and we got some traction, but not a lot. But in the early 2000s, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jerry Brown in California, they went to Paris and they got onto the idea of reducing greenhouse gases, and they required every city to do a climate plan. And in the climate plan, they found out that of the third or fourth largest generator of greenhouse gases in an urban area or in an area was the waste management system, the landfill. And so recently, the governor ordered the Air Quality Control Board, CARB, to go out and fly over landfills and find out whether there really was a problem. And they did find that there was a problem. It was a large amount of methane gas coming out of all the landfills they flew out of. And methane is much more deadlier than CO2. So, we've been saying get it out because of farming and agriculture and saving water and all those good things. But they went to the Air Board and asked the engineers, how do you mitigate methane in a landfill? And the engineer said, you don't put it in it. So now in California, it's against organics in the landfill. There's a phased out system going on, but we're all dealing with this particular issue in California, and it's a good experience for us because we're probably grow most of the fruits and vegetables. We're one of the San Joaquin Valley is one of the biggest fruits and vegetables in the area. Can we go to the next slide? And can you start at the beginning? So you get a full screen.
Oh, so I have. From my end, I have got a full screen. So I think we are in the. I don't care.
Go to the next slide. I can live with this. So
maybe it's not. I understand what's actually happening. Okay, hold on. New share. It's because it's gone into a new page. Is that full screen?
There. That's fine. Yes, that's perfect. So the key that we were living by when we got together in Penang with the grassroots movements against incineration and talking about zero waste as a goal was, and it's been called aspirational, but you have to aspire to attain. That's what I say. So we came up with a definition. We sent it around the world for people to look at. And recently we've updated it with the help of hundreds of, maybe thousands of people internationally through Gaia came up with this, and we all agreed that zero waste is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So bottom line is that it's now become a different way of looking at how we have. It's no longer waste management, it's resource management. Next slide. A great author, yeah, no, go back, there you go. William McDonough, Cradle to Cradle, great book, architect. And bottom line, he said, life cycle analysis is stupid because you put in the grave, which is the landfill incinerator, which is a polluter, into the economic analysis. And the bottom line, if you do that, the polluter is always going to win. If you want to have the world be a place that's safe for your children and your grandchildren, you have to make pollution against the law. So he basically saw that if you look at materials that we generate in terms of discards, that there were two basic cycles, an organic cycle and a technical cycle. And he came up with this cradle to cradle system. Now, this is done by Ellen MacArthur, but it really does show what I'm talking about. So the technical system is the recyclable, the materials that we sell on the markets, the paper and the metal and the hard plastics and textiles and things that can be recycled. And if you look at the way the loops go, it's basically sharing, and then it's reclaiming, and then it's recycling, refurbishing, and it all comes back to making into products and back into the system. When you look at a world with a shortage of resources, you see that's the way you maintain resources in the system, and you save energy to boot. On the organic side, it's the same concept. It's in your own area, feeding people, feeding animals, feeding the soil, and as you go around the loop, it comes back. Now, on the bottom is what we call mistakes. That's the slippage. If we do this right, if we design for the environment, if we emulate nature, then we won't have this kind of slippage. And this is what is the residual. And we don't design for residual, we design for these two technical. So, okay, so that's the two cycles that we're living with. Next. There you go. So given all that and recognizing that at the end of World War II, basically we were burning garbage and covering it as a part of a war thing. War, when in Europe, the government said to the industry, we got to deal with this waste stuff. What are you going to do about it? And so they built incinerators. Most of the other places in the world went to the concept of sanitary landfill. And that's when I started the field about 74. I went to an engineering firm, and I was the recycling guy on the team, but they were looking for landfill sites, and they really didn't know anything about what was happening. A little story is that I'm sitting there working, and I'm reading a magazine article about an old organic pit that's generating some kind of gas, and the guy plugged it into a generator and started the generator. And I went to the boss and said, we've got this old landfill that we're designing to put a drive-in theater. I bet you we can power it from the gas. And it turned out we had enough to do it. We didn't do that, but the next project we designed a golf course that had basically all the steam heating run from methane gas. Well, it turns out it's a big mistake. I mean, the methane gas is a big problem in terms of greenhouse gases. In fact, landfills were one of the largest anthropomorphic, which means human-made sources of greenhouse gases, and it's 21 plus issue. So we don't want landfills are not good because of organics. Now, we have said, as far as we is concerned, is if you got all the organics out and it was a dry tomb, that's way down on our hierarchy, but it would be acceptable for stuff that we couldn't compost or recycle. Next slide. So yeah, there you go. So bottom line is the compost cycle, the organic cycle, which was fairly clear in the photo. It's a closed circle. It's just and it's really not a small switch in terms of doing it. That is, you give families the proper collection bin, and you put it out on. You tell them what you want. Here's the green 3-yard bin with the pickup up to a composting facility. This facility, because of air issues, has a bag on top, and it's air going through it, but it's done all over the state of California, and the result is soil. The soil can go to our soils that we're making in our compost in are going to vineyards up in Northern California and agriculture in the San Joaquin Valley. So that's the compost cycle. The problem was that when we started this thing, that we wanted to put everything mixed into a landfill, which was a mistake. We should have had the separate collection and did the separate source. Next slide. I'm going to through the next ones pretty quickly. So here's the deal. You have a solid waste ordinance requires, you require that you can't put hazardous waste, you can't put size of material, the weight of the can. You designate a technical can for paper and containers and an organic can for food and yard waste. And so you make it part of your ordinance that it's a required separation, and you manage this material away from the landfill, away from the incinerator, to a farm or to a composting facility or to a digester. Next slide. So that's the key thing, is to manage it. And part of that is to coordinate. Don't just do it. Go out and talk to the farmers and find out what they need and work with the resource managers to make it happen. Because when the farmers go to the council, that's when you turn and makes it happen. So, next slide. And here's the issue, is capacity. If you don't have it, you have to get it. So part of it is land use. I think New Zealand works for open compost. As far as I'm concerned, this is the most inexpensive, and it's a really good way to make soil. But if you have to put the liner on top, that's fine, or even in a digester, it's fine. But the idea is you have to, by making the ordinance require source separation, that takes the landfill out of competition and creates a new set of businesses of composting companies, not having to compete with cheap disposal. Next slide. So and this is the last piece here, is that this is a guy, it's a dairy farmer, and he has a digester, and he's making these, there's lots of compatible kinds of situations that work to reduce greenhouse gases and create soil. It's a wonderful win-win kind of system. Next slide. So there were some chats, questions in the chat box. I would gladly open this up for questions. You have to get off mute to do it. I think anybody can talk, right, Dorothy?
No, not everybody can talk. So there are no questions in the Q&A yet. So just encouraging attendees to chuck questions as they come up for you.
So my question would be, New Zealand, what's of getting the farmers and the recyclers together to get the organics out of the landfill? Anybody want to take a shot at that one?
Ask the question again.
What do you think are the chances in New Zealand to basically do what's happening around the rest of the world? And we'll show you that, to get organics out of the landfill back to the farms. What are your barriers?
What are your barriers? Okay, so people, if you'd like to answer that, please put up your hand and I can add you into the conversation. There has been another question come through, and maybe I can just say that I think in regards to your question, Rick, the ordinance stuff is really interesting, and I think that would be a pathway that would probably take some exploring in New Zealand, but it would be really interesting. And we've got another session happening just after this one. So at 10 o'clock New Zealand time, we'll have a session with a whole bunch of local organics people. So maybe after that session, we'll have some good answers for you. So let's go to the questions. AJ has asked if you could elaborate on the comment about life cycle analysis.
Oh, I have fights with these life cycle analysis, because in the analysis of the life cycle, they include the cost of disposal of the residue. And typically that's how they make their money, by polluting. If you took that out, I mean, the fact is the landfill or the incinerator, in many cases, we're talking to carpet guys, and they want to build incinerators to burn their residue. So well, why don't you redesign that carpet so that it recycles? And well, incinerators are a lot cheaper. So to me, I'd make it a cradle to cradle analysis where if there's going to be a residual, you have to figure out what to do it within your own facility.
So another question is, we're told that landfill needs a certain percentage of organics. Do you know anything about this? And I think that might need a little bit of context. I feel like the person asking the question might be in Wellington, and the Wellington landfill is also a landfill that accepts sewage sludge. And yeah, maybe you'd like to talk about that.
So was the question about the proportion of organics in the landfill? You know, if that's the question, typically the waste discard generation from communities, cities is about 40% organics, maybe even 50% when you add yard trimmings, food, and wood and soil as part of these discards. Is about half of what goes in. And, you know, we only learned about methane early on, you know, we learned about it, but we didn't know in the 70s. Most of you weren't born then. There was an oil boycott, and we couldn't get oil around the world, and so the price of electricity went up to like 10-12 cents a kilowatt hour. Well, I'm generating gas in the landfill, and these guys are saying, hook it up to a generator, we'll buy that electricity for 10 cents a kilowatt hour. That became state of the art for mitigating methane in the landfill. The problem is it maybe gets about 10%, 15%, at the most 30 to 40 capture. And so there's a lot of methane just comes out of the landfill through the cracks and on the face of the landfill right there. So that's the issue. But I don't know if I answered your question or not. If I took that 40% out, I would have a dry tomb, and I could put stuff in there and keep it for hundreds of years.
Okay, so we've got some more questions. I think we probably need to move to some of the other speakers, but just because I asked people to put their hands up and somebody did, I think I'm going to allow this person to talk. So Quinn, not sure if I'm saying that right, but you are now allowed to talk. Do you want to say something?
Quinn.
Hey, I think that was an accident. I apologize. I didn't mean to raise your hand.
Great. Well, we know it works. Awesome.
Good to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right. So let me introduce the next speaker, Ana Carvalho. And Ana has a lot of experience in the field, and she's going to talk on upstream, what we need to do. Ana? Yeah, there it is.
Is that showing?
Yep.
So once again, I'm in charge, and we've had some technical issues, like we could not get Ana to share the correct screen. So this is actually a slightly older version of what she was going to be talking about, but that's all good. So over to you, Ana.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Sorry about all the technical problems, and this presentation is not the one that I was planning, but we're going to make it happen. And first, I want to apologize. I have an accent, and it makes it hard to understand what I say. On top of that, I only have a few minutes to talk about everything, so I'll be talking fast, and I am so sorry about that. I hope the slides help you understand what is what I'm saying. The first thing here is what we're going to be talking about, and I want to catch your attention, bring your attention to the poster. Food is a weapon, don't waste it. Buy wisely, cook carefully, eat it all. I saw this poster inside the military cafeteria in Coronado, the city of Coronado in California, when I went to work with them to do the waste diversion for the military bases. And that was very powerful. This was during the Second World War, 1943, where resources were scarce and people understood the value of food, not just because they were hungry, but involved water, electricity, and fuel, and they didn't have that. And here we are, all those times later, 80 years later, we still doing the same thing. We don't remember, we forgot, and we are not valuing this extremely important resource. And even the military institutions of the world now recognize climate change as one of the biggest threats to humanity. Organic diversion plays a big role in it. If we divert the food waste and we make clean energy from that, and then we put organic matter on the soil to help the agriculture, and we sequester CO2 from the atmosphere, that's a great program. So I want this to be up front so people understand this is not just another diversion program. This is crucial, should be in the priority list of every government. Next, please. The problem is that we have challenge. Every time you talk to somebody about food waste, oh, they don't do it. There is a shame that you do some waste because people are hungry, because you could poverty issues. Nobody wants to admit that. And business don't like that either because they have in the budget, and is a very strong part of their budget. So it tells them that they're throwing this away. And this is a serious problem. So I think we need to make sure we approach carefully, not to put anybody on the spot or a dark light on any business, to talk about how we do that. Education, explaining the difference between wasted food and food waste. I think on this presentation, the third slide shows that. Yes. So for example, you have a perfect tomato and you have a one that's kind of scratchy. People don't think about that, but you can buy that and you can make sauce. You can put in the salad and a salsa. And the grocery stores in the United States say about 3,000 of those tomatoes I discard from the grocery because nobody buy them because of that. That's the kind of education that we need to do it and help everybody understand. When you try to educate people, you need to aim for 3 different areas: the brain, the heart, and the pocket. You need to work with common sense, passion, and financial issues. Once they understand that, they can be open to make change on how they work and paradigm and understanding things different. Next, please. So there are hierarchies to how to divert, and the Zero Waste International Alliance has this one that says basically source reduction, feeding people, feed animals, and manage the material through compost or AD facilities, never landfill or incineration. And my experience when working with those with the hierarchy and working with people is to work with the composting first. Next, please. So this is the commercial composting facility that I used to manage this program. When you look at that, these are the loads that we come all the time. There are clear load there that's for feeding animals, a load that you could be repurposed feeding people or animals, and one for composting. So when the generators see that, you can start talking to them about, see how much you do here. Let's see if we can decrease your cost on composting by repurposing, by donating. They are more open. When they do the composting, it's like a pat on the back, like I do a great job. Now I'm adding something else to my great job by diverting to compost. So now they're going to look, okay, I can decrease. They can look at it and don't feel bad about it. And you need to talk to them and educate them about how this can happen. Next, please. Prevention, and we think it's something that's, we see it a lot in the Army and in the penitentiary, is that you don't have a choice. You have to eat what they serve. So they cook everything, but now it's a fashion, cook everything root to stock. So proper purchasing and storage, good knife skills are so important for decreasing waste. Avoid refreshing the chefing dishes. Cook on time instead of cooking batch. Small portions, plan the menu. And we have large, very large portions. We don't need that. Next, please. Can we skip this? Okay, so to divert food for farms, it's great, but you need to make sure you have farms around. What kind of farm, what kind of animals, what kind of food they take, if it's cost effective. Sometimes the farms are too far and it's not worth it, so you got to rethink about it. Next, please. This is a strategy that I recommend. I start working with the largest generation in the region. So that way you get the highest diversion, the highest cost benefit for the site, and the highest outreach. There's so many people work in hospitality, and you reach them and the public that comes to them. So I work with the International Airport in San Diego. We seal road, the San Diego Zoo and Animal Park, universities, the farms, the hotels, hospitals. You go for that and you start working with them and get it. Again, education is the base of it. When I was doing all of this, it wasn't mandatory, which many places still not. So you got to approach tactfully and you got to work with them. Each one of them belong to a different industry. And when you go there, you need to know that and also know the culture of each site. So when I approached them, I would work with them looking how they work, how's the culture there. And then I implement the program, determine containers, signage, logistics, everything. I would help them work with the haulers to find out they have the proper service of volume and frequency of service. Then I would train everybody from the top manager to the janitorial and kitchen staff. And the training was to show meaning for that, what they're gonna do. It's not like, hey, you're gonna put the food here and that's it. No, this is important. It's important for life. It's important for sustainability. Your role means a lot. You throwing things in one bin makes a big difference than if you don't do that. I empower them to understand what they're doing. And to my surprise, most of the managers say, oh, employees don't want to do that. It's another diversion, another container, another collection. And at the end, employees were super happy and proud about that. I don't know how it is in New Zealand, but in hospitality in the United States, a lot of people that work there, they are food insecure population, meaning they have a salary, but they don't know where the next meal for the family will come from. So those people appreciate the diversion. And what they are dealing now wasn't trash, was a resource that could be repurposed in their own business to make the business more profitable, more efficient, and also make a difference in the community for people that are hungry. They appreciate that, they took proud. And an interesting thing that happened after that, once employees changed jobs, if they got in a job facility that was not doing, they would start pushing them to do it because they appreciate and see the value of it. Next, please. Incentives in recognition are super important. Like I said, education, personal education, value their culture, be there for them. And then we promoted in social media website. We wrote about who they were, the obstacles overcame, how much they're diverting, how much they were saving. We encouraged them, we gave them awards and encouraged them to apply for awards, local, state, national, and they did, they won. We did workshops and invite them to talk for the rest of their own industry, to teach and share their experience. We encouraged them to participate in national and international conference, presenting their work. And it was so good. They took so much pride on their work that they want to share. So a hotel wouldn't mind share with a different hotel. They want the other one come and visit the sites and see how they work. They were not competitive. Now it became like, let's be a team and all do that. Some of them were sites for international tours, professionals that come to see it. And I'm very proud to say that a lot of them were used as a model for the industries, for California, when they are writing the law that require mandatory food waste diversion and donation. I did the seal of participation. It was just a sticker that you put on the window for the customers to see that tells that they were participating in the food composting program. The restaurant association, the hotel industry, they all had surveys showing that their customers want a facility that is environmentally responsible. You go to a hotel and they say, don't keep your towel up, and if you don't put it on the floor, we don't wash and we save water. A lot of people that go talk to a hotel for a conference want to make sure that they are environmentally responsible before they bring the conference. So all of this helped them and differentiate them from the rest of their other business and made them proud. The photo on top is a gentleman that was our council member at the time, and he presented one of the seal participations that's a sticker to put on the window to a restaurant. Good for the politician, good for the business, good for the cause. Later on, when food waste became sexy and wasn't mandatory yet, but was the talk between chefs and people that work in the hospitality, I introduced the seal of donation because there was no shame more in having food to donation. Was proud. This is part of the business and we're not throwing away. We are making a difference in our community. And it was very successful. Next, please. You need legislations. Luckily in San Diego, we have Bill Emerson, Good Samaritan Food Act that protects anybody from liability. If you donate food with a good heart, you can be sued. And that's something that assured the business about donation. People are afraid donating for businesses are afraid to donate for people. So when they are ready to start the donation, I partnered with a food bank and brought the expert in to talk to them about the legislations, about what they had there that could be donated, how they would storage, the temperature, if it's warm, it's cold, how often they would come to pick it up, and gave them a receipt saying how much tonnage they had donated for the diversion rates and also for the tax debate. And it was fantastic. Like I said, the internal revenue in the United States have a tax deduction for donations. And the third one was the USDA, Department of Agriculture, and Environmental Protector Agencies have a goal to decrease food waste 50% by 2030. All of these help when you approach business for the education. Next, please. Then we have the California regulations. California has a couple of very progressive legislations that I love. AB 32 that wants to decrease greenhouse gas emissions this year by the level that was in 1990. And with the CARB study show that if you get 1 ton of surplus food and you donate, you avoid emissions of 2.08 metric ton of carbon emissions, CO2. If you get 1 ton of food waste to compost, you avoid emission of 0.32 metric ton of CO2. Those are very important things because help with the climate change mitigation that we're trying to achieve. So you're not just diverting waste, you're not just feeding people, but you also help with the bigger picture, which is the climate change. And then California has SB 1383 that wants to, like Rick said, that wants to decrease methane from landfills. And they want to decrease 50% in 2020 and become enforceable in 2022, which gives 2 years for business and individuals to accept the new culture before it becomes enforcement. In 2025, they want to decrease 75%, but people need to donate no less than 20% of the edible food. It's the first time I see a waste regulation that requires donation, and it's incredible. Next, please. For all of this, you need infrastructure. You can't just divert everything without infrastructure. You have to have collection capabilities, commercial composting facilities, AD facilities, decentralized commercial facilities. You need all that you can. Next, please. So there's some examples of school composting that they use the kitchen food scraps and Compost Cycle. The other one you have that's the Veterans of American Hospital in La Jolla, where they create a compost of fruit and vegetable scraps, composting on site as a therapy for the veterans that have post-traumatic syndrome. So compost is helping also with that. Next, please. We have a residential that you do composting on site for residential sites and build community that neighbors get to know each other. And then the next one is this bottle is a plastic bottle, PET bottle cut on top with little holes that created by the Zero Waste Brazil that's being used to help food waste diversion and high-rise units. You layer food waste with a layer of carbon, and in 1 month, this is compost. And that has been helping too underprivileged communities to do that so they can grow their own food like spices and vegetables because they are located in food desert areas and don't have the money for health food. It's a fantastic.
You need to wind up.
I'm going. Next, please.
We got a limited amount of time.
So we have the examples of the ugly fruits and vegetables. Some in San Diego are buying 10% of more of that and saving on purchasing of that. There's a grocery store in France that started selling them and saw an increase of 24% traffic on the stores because of that. Next, we have also reduction of waste in the university that took the tray from the cafeteria. When you have a cafeteria, you put the plate, your drink, dessert, a chip or something else, but you don't eat it. By taking the tray, they decreased 22%. A large hotel in San Diego did a study on how much they waste with Lean Path, and they found a way to reduce 63% of pre-consumer food, decreasing 13 tons of food a year. The food that they were buying, 29,000 a year, that they were not using. Not to mention that they decreased the tipping fee and transportation and avoid emissions. Next. This is a good one. 2 students that were waiters in San Diego found a restaurant throwing away grains like rice and quinoa without touch. So they decided to get that and find a diversion. They create a flour base that they later get some fruit pulps from juice stores and create three types of cookies to sell. So the food that was being thrown away that could feed people now is feeding people and create job opportunities for others. Fantastic work. Next, Rick, two more. This is the good example on the hotel in San Diego, Hilton Hotel with 1,100 rooms, started the program with us in 2012, just composting. In 2018, they decreased from 0.65 pounds of food waste per cover to 0.2. It's an incredible decrease, especially for hotels. That's a very wasteful industry. The other one that we have is the Sheraton San Diego too. That's a large hotel, 1,500 rooms. They're donating 4,000 pounds of food per month, creating 3,000 meals for the insecure population in San Diego. Next, a good example of feeding animals. That's, like I said, you have to figure out if you have the capability, but this is a milk farm that they collect 155 tons a week of food waste from local business to help add nutrition for the meal that they give to the cows. So this is another way to contribute if you have a rural area around. And next, that's the end.
That's the last one, right?
Thank you all very much for that. I hope you
Bless you.
understand that food waste is not a problem that's the government, is the business, or is the farmer. It's a problem all of us. Everyone contribute. We all contribute to that. We all go to the supermarket and don't buy the perfect food to eat. We all cook and don't eat. We all buy stuff that we don't use. It starts with us. It's a problem that we all have to look at it. And if you think about the farms that we have nowadays, they can feed the world population without hunger, with what they have right now. They have so much waste. That doesn't happen. With the same space, the same water, energy, they can feed everybody in the world and more. And if we compost that, use this for AD, for clean energy for those farms, and compost, putting organic matter in the soil, we can grow more food, use less water, no pesticide, and help the world, and help climate change by pushing carbon to the soil. This is right. And is a priority for safety of humanity. So please pay attention. Thank you very much.
Ana Carvalho, everybody. That's a great. We're going to hold the questions and jump right into Leslie, so that because we're running short of time. You're on, Leslie.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me just put this in the right view. There we go. So I am going to be sharing about compostable products. We have many products that have come online that look and feel like plastic, but they're made out of a cornstarch or some type of sugar resin, and they're called, compostable products. So I'm in Sonoma County, which is in Northern California. It's the grape growing region of our state, as well as other fruits and vegetables. So we're a very agricultural county. And we're going to be implementing or designing a new compost facility. That's going to include standard covered arid static pile compost, as well as anaerobic digestion for food waste. So there's been a lot of questions and concerns about compostable products, and can they really be put into the compost stream? We used to have a compost facility here in Sonoma County that closed down. And at that time, compostable products were not allowed. And the main reason is because the composter makes organic compost. And our federal government stated that if you put compostable products in your compost stream, you can no longer call your compostable product or your compost organic, because there's synthetic binding materials within these compostable products that negates that organic certification. And many composters design compost for organic matter and matter that's certified organic. So those two, the products and the end material, don't really match. But we decided to really study it, and we put together a stakeholder group with all sectors of this industry, from those that manufacture the compostable resins, to the end users, to the haulers, to plastic experts, to the government, and I had a professional facilitator who led us through the process to talk about if we could really include these materials. And we had a mission to recognize the challenges and benefits of compostable products and what those challenges and benefits were to the composting facility, product manufacturers, as well as the municipalities. So in our research, which lasted well over a year and a quarter, we met every other week for that long. We interviewed industry experts. We listened to many presentations from different compost facilities who are accepting the material. And then we also reviewed white papers on the topic, not just from here in the United States, but also white papers in Europe. We researched various case studies. And as a group, we came up with a white paper that had 3 options on it. And the 3 options were that this new compost facility was going to accept unlined fiber-only products. So those are compostable foodware products made out of paper, much like that picture right there. Or could we do a single stream with all compostable products, the ones that look and feel like plastic plus the fiber ones, but they had to be BPI certified, which is our certification that states that these compostable products break down in a certain time frame. And then our option 3 was this dual process, where part of our finished compost would you be able to accept the BPI certified product as well as fiber only. So it's a two-way collection system. But just some of the facts, there's just less than 5,000 compost facilities in the United States. Only 185 of them accept food waste, and less than half of those accept the BPI certified compostable products. So there's not a big market out there for these single-use products. And in California, we have 160 compost facilities. Only 38 of them accept food waste, and only 14 of those accept BPI certified plastics and compostable products. We also have that state law that Anna mentioned, which requires organics to go out of the landfill. And within that legislation, it clearly states that the compostable products have to meet the ASTM D6400 standard. That's an international standard that the BPI certification uses. And it's the exact same where it states that these products are going to break down in a reasonable time. But what we found out in our research is even though some of the facilities in California are accepting compostable products, they're actually screening out the these compostable products in their pre-processing because they can't tell if it's truly plastic or a compostable product. They don't know. And so there's a pre-screening process that happens to get the contaminants out. So it's come out in the newspaper that many of these facilities, even though, the industry is selling these products as compostable, when it gets to the compost facility, the reality is it's being screened out. And when it's not being screened out, it's actually being screened out on the back end because most of the compost facilities mentioned to us that actually these products aren't breaking down as fast as they're saying. But there are benefits. We wanted to recognize that there are benefits. We do believe it enhances the amount of food waste that you're going to be collected. From the manufacturer's point, there's less fossil fuels in manufacturing the products, so they're less toxic. That BPI certification says they'll break down in 3 to 6 months. So that's kind of like the pro side of these products. But what we found is in the state above us in Oregon, the composters came together and said, you know what, we tried this and we accepted compostable products for a year or two, and it actually was a big mess. It cost more to operate our facilities because of screening. We now have to pay for landfilling because we can't tell if these products are truly compostable or not. They're not breaking down as fast as they should be. There's contamination, so people are confused. Actually, the plastics industry has started to use the green, markings on some of their truly plastic materials. So there's just a lot of confusion out there. It hurts the resale value because organic compost sells about $25 a square foot, whereas non-organic compost is $5 a square foot. So it's really not a benefit to the composter to use these compostable products in Oregon, put a halt to them into their landfill. We also looked at case studies. Santa Monica, which is just part of Los Angeles, They went a whole new ban on single-use plastics, and they included the bioplastics, compostable plastics in that, and went to fiber only. Alameda, which is a city south of ours, did the same thing. They pushed the messaging of reusable is best. Only compostable fiber single-use products, and all plastics were going to be banned. And Berkeley, California did something very similar, although they are allowing the compostable plastics to go into their organic stream. And I did talk to the composter there, and it's getting screened out. So me being responsible for my county, I didn't want to send the message to our constituents that we were going to be accepting compostable plastics, when in fact I knew that they were going to get screened out and in the process. So the option one that we wrote in the white paper is yes on all fibers and no on single-use fiber products that have the PLA compostable plastic lining, like for your hot cup, and no of the compostable plastics. Option two was, okay, let's put everything together, compostable plastics, materials that have the lining and the fiber, and no to everything else. And then we also looked at this dual stream option, where we would do targeted outreach and education to commercial accounts, and we would allow those accounts to just use all compostable products. And then the option two is residents and the non-commercial or other commercial accounts that we didn't train how to go back to this original system. So we looked at the cost of those two programs, and what we found is that what we were doing, fiber only, that's our baseline. But the minute we went to option two, which was single stream, we had a direct increased cost in our disposal. And that dual stream, actually, we found an incredible more cost. So, just sorting cost, disposal cost, and the biggest one was, just like screening. And we also looked at it a different way and just changing our capital expenses, how we were going to build the facility. We would need to spend more so that we could have this dual stream program. Our operating expenses would be increasing. Change in revenue, that's a huge one. If we did all BPI products, that meant that our compost was no longer going to be certified as organic compost. So that was a huge driver to lose that revenue at our compost facility. And then we also, just a change in annual cost, that was the total figure that we came up with if going from those three options. So lastly, I just want to close by saying what Sonoma County decided to do is that we defined our organic feedstock as just yard debris, food debris, and fiber-only compostable products. We are going to advocate for better policy and labeling for these products. We do want our federal program that certifies materials as crops as organic, that if we could get them to actually just change the cups with the fiber cups with that PLA compostable lining, if we can get them to certify that as organic, that would really help with like coffee cups and hot soup cups. And it's minimal contamination to the compost stream. And so we're for more labeling. And in the end, we followed the campaign of Alameda, which is reusables is best, recycling and compostables are great, and we clearly define what they are. And polystyrene foam is now banned in our county. So that is my presentation.
Thank you, Leslie. We have Enzo has joined us. Rick, what was your plan? Do you want to just pass over to Enzo? And you are probably on mute. Hi, Enzo.
Good morning for you. Yeah. We are sharply the opposite side of the world, and therefore.
Yes, that's 9 o'clock at night for you. Welcome. So we've got some questions coming through, but Enzo, do you have a presentation you want to share, or would you like me to share it from my screen?
Me?
Yeah.
I have got my presentation. I can manage it from my computer.
Okay, so why don't you get that ready? In the meantime, I think there's a couple of questions. I think Anna, it would be good to ask you this one question, which is, who funds the edible food diversion organisations? Here, the supermarkets and growers, they don't pay for the rescue organisations to collect the food, and those that need the food can't pay for it either. So Anna, it would be great if you could answer that question, come online and answer that question.
Okay, thanks. So right now we have the food bank funds that. They go, they pick it up, and they are supported by different donors, including grocery stores that help them with fridge and transportation. Starbucks gave them some refrigerator van to collect. But in this new legislation in California, that donation is mandatory, a lot of municipalities are working with the haulers. So the haulers will probably do refrigerated trucks and collect that and take it to other points. There's another place in by Los Angeles that what they did is they work with cabs, and it's a company that what they do is each driver will do one drive for free, collecting the donation from one site and dropping another one. They put it in the trunk, they don't touch, everything is according to the standards. And if they don't have the space for a refrigerator, they would take it to a 7-Eleven store, which is a convenience store that you have every corner in the United States. They partner with them, they will put on their fridge until that material can go to the proper place to eat. Another one that's done is they have some kitchens like Outside Kitchen or Kitchens for Good, that they take that material, they buy the food scraps, not food scrap, but the uglies and other edible foods from some sites. They get donation and they buy for a lower price, and they turn into meals that they give it to nonprofits or seniors or the food banks. They get grants for that, and they manage to keep their business afloat by doing catering. So catering with the food, gleaning food or uglies or food that was donated, they create caterings on that food, and people hire them because it's the right thing to do, it's trendy, it's charming, and the food is delicious. And those kitchens also teach zero waste cooking classes for communities. They charge small amount, but they do. And they also do training. So it's a job training for people with hard to find jobs, like former inmates and things like that. So they train them to work on the industry with also the mentality of zero waste. So it's being a great situation for sustaining the whole system. Sorry, I wasn't in the video. Sustaining the whole system by helping all the industries. Right now, this is how it's done for the donations. And I'm sure that some of the municipalities will have to work with private sector now to subsidize the huge donation that's coming.
Awesome. Okay, so just running with our technical issues today, we've got Richard has disappeared, and Enzo has come in and is labelled as Richard. So in fact, this is Enzo, and because Rick isn't here, I'm gonna introduce Enzo, and then we'll get him to do his presentation, and then we'll come together and you can ask all your questions to any of the panelists, and hopefully in the meantime we'll find Rick. So Enzo is joining us from Europe, I guess Italy. He is the chair of the scientific committee and is a technical expert and researcher. Oh, and my Italian is not going to be able to deal with these words. Technical expert and researcher in the Scuola Agraria del Parco di Monza, with decades of experience in separate collection, recycling, composting and prevention. And he's also an expert in EU waste legislation and a valuable resource in European policy making. He's one of the founders of the European Compost Network and a coordinator of the scientific committee of the Zero Waste Research Centre in Italy. So thank you so much for joining us, Enzo. You've shared your screen, so over to you.
So can you see my slides already?
Yes.
Hi,
Thanks,
Enzo, Dorothy. I'm back again. I'm sorry.
Great. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, you're on, Enzo. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, great. They want me to set the scene about composting and management of the organics in the European Union. Well, actually, the management of organics has become the real cornerstone in our circular economy programs. You know that Europe provided itself with a circular economy which is very ambitious. It targets a 65% net material recovery by 2035. Net material recovery means discounting the rejects from composting and recycling. So it means we will have to get somewhere between 75 and 80% separate collection. But we've already got quite a few municipalities, provinces, counties, districts, and regions already around that level. And always the booster is separate collection of the organics. Curbside programs for organics are the real booster for diversion levels we may achieve in Europe, as everywhere around the world. Anyway, this is just to give you a snapshot. It's an overview of the biowaste strategies as defined by different member states of the European Union. We used to have 28 member states. Now they are down to 27 since the Britons, they made decision to leave, but we'll be happy to have them back because we are friendly people and therefore. But anyway, we have got obligations for separate collection stipulated in Germany since 2015, in the Netherlands since 1995. In Italy, it has just been stipulated in 2020. In Catalonia since 1995, Catalonia is the leading region in Spain when it comes to separate collection and recycling programs. And many more member states are now aligning. For instance, lately, it is expanding towards Central Eastern European countries, the so-called accession countries, the last ones which joined Europe. For instance, Romania just adopted a national plan for waste management. But this is basically triggered by the new provisions which are stipulated in the new European directives. I will go back to this one in a while. In other countries, there is no obligation yet, but there are recycling targets acting as drivers for separate collection of the organics. For instance, the United Kingdom, Italy, in the past, we used to have a 65% separate collection target, and there was no way to get there without including the organics, or specific biowaste targets, such as Sweden. So a certain percentage of biowaste has to be processed through composting and anaerobic digestion. Why organics are so important, I know I do not have to convince you. You are zero wasters and therefore you are organicaholics, as I call them. Anyway, there is a quantitative importance of the organics because, as we already discussed, they are fundamental to achieve the highest material recovery rates. But also, probably even more importantly, there is an operational angle, because once we take the organics out, we minimize percentage of organics and residual waste, and therefore we may sharply cut on the collection frequency for residual waste, which acts as a further driver for better separation also of other materials, such as paper, glass, plastics, metals, because people would be less keen to wait until the next collection round for mixed garbage, and they want to get rid of materials into the proper separate collections stream. While discussing organics, anyway, we are at the crossroads of many angles of environmental sustainability. Just a quick overview, we may store carbon in soils. This is becoming really one of the topmost priorities over here in Europe. We have got dedicated strategies for organics in the soil, such as the recently adopted farm to fork strategy, which promotes carbon farming. You know that soils are the second largest pool of carbon in the planet after oceans. And therefore, if we manage carbon in soils, we will have more carbon in the soils to produce fertility and less carbon in the atmosphere to cause climate change. But all these reasons, which I list here with briefly, led to the great news that in the latest new Waste Framework Directive adopted in 2018, Article 22 established a widespread obligation for all the member states across Europe to implement separate collection of the organics. So this will be an obligation as of January 1st, 2024. So it's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Anyway, separate collection is already widespread, above all in Central Europe, but also Italy. By now, the population in Italy is covered by 85% of the total population. There are different collection models. They refer to different local operational traditions or when the system was started. Normally, the first ones, they implement the pilots, and then the followers, they look at what's working and what is not working. And so they may perfect the system, they may improve the system. Anyway, what is widespread is separate collection of garden waste, because of course it's the easiest to be done. You just may tell people, okay, come to the civic amenity site, the municipal recycling center, take your own garden waste there, and you're done. This is quite common across Europe. When it comes anyway to schemes which are also targeting food scraps, which is the real challenge and the real important benefit of tackling organics, there are systems in Central Europe with commingled collection, garden and food waste, and there are other systems which are dedicated systems for collection of so-called bespoke food waste. And this is quite common in Italy, in Spain, in many parts of the United Kingdom, in Norway, so it's covered across Europe. We did a survey lately. It was run jointly by Zero Waste Europe, where I serve as the scientific coordinator, and BIC, which is Bio-Based Industries Consortium. It's the publicly mandated body by the European Union to promote bioeconomy in Europe. And we surveyed what we called the untapped potential. So we will have the obligation for separate collection of the organics soon. Where are all the member states now placed? The so-called distance to target. And as you can see on the leftmost bars, basically in Europe, only 16% of food scraps, the green bar, is currently captured, whereas it's 32% for bio-waste as a whole. Why is it higher for bio-waste as a whole relative to food scraps? Because in bio-waste as a whole, we've also got garden waste, which is the easiest to be collected, and so it's quite widespread across Europe. But there are a couple of exceptions, namely in Norway and Italy, because in those countries, with what we call the dedicated collection system for food waste only, there is a more aggressive capture of food scraps, and this is boosting the capture rates in those countries. So it's time to dig a little bit deeper into the operational patterns for separate collection. What we typically say, when I say we, I don't mean the Europeans as a whole. I would say the zero wasters, those who want to maximize separate collection, recycling, composting, reuse, and so on. We always say waste is like water. It has to flow the easiest way. But in order to make it flow the proper direction, we have to work on such tools as instruments to promote user-friendliness of the system, make people feel comfortable, and the collection frequency. I already mentioned the collection frequency when discussing the benefits, the operational benefits of taking the organics out, but basically, the trick is separate collection of the organics should be more frequent than the collection of mixed garbage. And that being the case, people will be keen to separate more organics in order to get rid of them more frequently. Okay, tools to make the system user-friendly, comfortable, tidy, and so on and so forth. Compostable bags are very popular. We use either paper bags or certified compostable bags. We have got a rock-solid standard in Europe. It has been working since 2002. It is EN 13432, and it's largely accepted and even promoted by the composting industry, because the composting industry, and by far most of the situations, they know it not only increases the captures, but also improves the quality. Otherwise, people would use very often the ordinary plastic bags. So we use the compostable bags, and they get fully composted with the organics. This is the way the system works. This is in my own hometown where I live. You know, we have got kitchen caddies. We use the compostable bags as liners. We put the food scraps inside, and then we put at the curb during the collection day, either a bucket if you live in a detached house, or as in this situation, you can see these block of flats in the background. So in those situations, we tend to use the wheelie bins, the carts. So with one single pick, we may serve up to 10 or 15 families, and we save on time and we save on money, of course, for the collection. In Italy, with such systems, capture rates of 60, 70, 100 kilograms and more plain food waste are easily achieved. This is quite widespread. Let me draw your attention. You know, Italy is sharply the opposite of the planet as New Zealand. So I'm talking to you head down and feet up. But basically we are at the same latitude, same climate. We have got islands, two main islands, which is one is Sardinia, one is Sicily, of course, tourist places. And look at Sardinia. Sardinia, until 10 years ago, used to be the least performing region in Italy with as little as 3% separate collection. And now, thanks to aggressive separate collection programs for the organics, they are already at 70% regional average and targeting 85% in next few years. This is an overview of the results we are having with such programs in Italy. We used to consider the separate collection rates. We have got 48 provinces, almost 50% of the provinces above 65% separate collection, but top 4 provinces already are above 80%. And the topmost performer, which is Treviso, totaling a population of 1 million, is at 88%. 3 regions, we've got 20 regions, including Lombardy, where I'm based, which totals a population of 11 million people, and they are above 70%, 3 regions, including Lombardy. But now we use new metrics. There's also a few municipalities around and above 90% already. So it's not zero waste yet, but we are getting damn close to zero. And you know better than me that zero waste is more the journey than the destination. But we say we're always happy, but never satisfied. Even in those municipalities achieving 90%, we celebrate one day, the following day, we give the nudge to the mayor and say, okay, so what's next? We want to get to 95 and then 97 and then 98. And you understand the story, how it goes. But we use the new metrics of sustainability in order to blend the efforts of waste reduction and separate collection. We use the parameter of minimized residuals in kilograms per person in year. So we have got out of a total of 8,000 municipalities, 2,400 municipalities below 100 kilos, 1,000 municipalities roughly below 70. The best performing are already below 30 kilograms per inhabitant in year of residual waste still needing disposal. So they're close to zero. Is it only suitable and viable for rural municipalities, small villages? No, no, sirs, it is not. This is the city of Milan. Milan is totaling 1.4 million people. So Aucklanders would say, hey, pretty much is our city. And Milan has got 1.4 million people, 800,000 daily commuters. They produce food scraps in Milan, of course, before getting back to their hometowns. 11 million visitors a year for business or for tourism. And with separate collection of the organics, including food scraps, Milan is already at 63% separate collection and totaling a unit capture of organics, of plain food scraps, sorry, of more than 100 kilograms per inhabitant in year. Making some calculations and comparing the collected organics, we had a separate collection program for organics dating back to 1995 for large producers, such as restaurants, canteens, greengroceries, bakeries, and so on. Then in 18 months, starting in 2012 and ending in early 2014, we covered 100% of the households. So summing up the captures and comparing with the amount of organics we still detect in residual waste, we find out that 87% of the organics are captured by the system, which is an impressive result for a city that size. Also, I always want to make people confident. Can we do that everywhere around the world? Yes, we may. This is a chart reporting on the ethnic groups living in Milan. Milan is the host city to 40,000 Filipinos, 35,000 Egyptians, 26,000 Chinese. We have got people, of course, in a big metropolitan area as Milan. Greater Milan totals 8 million people. And so we have got people coming from there from across the world, and they take part in the separate collection programs, which gives us an incredibly precious truth. it is the operational context that triggers the proper behavior. There is no such thing as a mindset which is against separate collection. If you design the system properly, if you run the system properly, people will behave. They will behave. Okay, now let me go towards the end. We have got different systems for composting, from individual composting. We promote the do-it-yourself composters as well, with just a mesh and a fleece to act as a liner, so as to prevent excess drying or wetting of the materials and to keep it also in a nicer shape. We have got community composting programs in not widespread yet, but it is gaining momentum right now. Above all, in United Kingdom, in Switzerland, there are many programs. The city of Zurich, which is the biggest city in Switzerland, is totally based on community composting. As also the city of Besançon in France, which is also a comparatively big city, a few regions in Spain, and many municipalities in other countries across Europe. This is a picture from the Basque Country, the northernmost region in Spain. Since the villages there are far off from each other and in a mountain area, they find it expensive to truck their organics to a centralized site, which may be 100 kilometers away. And so they use municipal composting programs with a very cheap and low-tech systems, such as this one. There are tactical approaches with modular systems, the bio boxes or the aeratic static piles. The wealth of such system is that you can start with small capacities, and then when the scheme is increased in size, you can admix, you can add further modules, further containers, further aerated static piles. A very smart approach, which is taken by probably one, I would say, the most advanced country when it comes to bio-waste management strategies, is currently Austria. They have got overall the highest capture rates per person, and they make agreements, local agreements with the farmers. Bäuerliche Kompostierung stands for composting done by farmers. So they tell the farmers, you have got the slabs, you have got the sheds, you have got machinery, you have got interest to use the compost, the end product. So we make an agreement with you and you will take care of our organics. And it works. 50% of the total capacity in Austria is made up of such middle and small size sites. Or industrial composting, of course, is also quite widespread. There is a total capacity in Germany, which is the leading country, of roughly 10 million tons. In Italy, it's already 7 million tons for clean organics, only from separate collection. Of course, it's highly engineered, and that being the case, odor management should be considered properly. Biofilters are the most effective system. I do not have time to delve deeper, but should you be curious about that, I'm ready to accept your questions and provide my answers. And the last one is anaerobic digestion. Yeah, anaerobic digestion is becoming increasingly popular because, you know, on a life cycle basis, anaerobic digestion performs better than composting in centralized systems because it keeps carbon in the form of renewable energy, which is methane. But on the flip side, you have to consider that it tends to be more expensive, it is less scalable. And so we are never dogmatic. We never say this is the silver bullet, this is the solution. No, we say it depends from the local context. And in this respect, we've also got a briefing paper issued by the Zero Waste International Alliance, as we are, which we are here to represent, about what to consider when choosing between composting and anaerobic digestion. It provides you with plenty of information, what to consider, also to maximize the environmental benefits of whatever you will adopt in your specific local context. Of course, it may be downloaded free of charge because we love to support people and to support each other in mutual respect and solidarity. I'm basically done. These are the key takeouts. Bio-waste strategies are widely and long defined in Europe. Still, despite the obligations by many countries and next to come, the European obligation, food waste is still a largely untapped potential. Garden waste is already more widespread. Collection of bio-waste has been propelled so far by garden waste, but we want to really capture what historically, in the history of mankind, has been the main part of household waste, which is food scraps. And so that has to be captured. There is still room for improvement in order to maximize the captures, make the system user-friendly, maximize participation, and improve the quality of what you collect, so that we may restore fertility in our soils, only giving back clean organic matter, nutrients, and nothing else. I'm done. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was great, Enzo. Dorothy, we have questions from the audience on this?
Yeah, there are lots of questions. I think we're probably, we've got 7 minutes if we stick to time. So we might go over slightly and get through a few of these, because we're recording it, so that will be useful to have it on the website, even if people do need to leave, if that's okay with you guys. So maybe we'll start with some of the questions for the earlier panelists. There was a question from Mark, who said, in New Zealand there is quite a monopoly in the waste companies who service organics, which from an economic perspective, it makes it hard for a social enterprise, which is a lot of our members, to come into the market, who want to do the right thing and gain a good economy of scale to make it viable without ongoing funding. So I guess this is maybe to anyone can answer this, but I think it's probably directed at Anna. So can you give a good example from San Diego where new businesses have grown in the organic space and how they did this? But it is open to anybody.
Okay, so let me try. In San Diego, it's very, we don't have a exclusive franchise. There are several haulers and we work with them. The permitting to site a commercial compost sites is very complicated in California, is very difficult. So we don't have a lot of large composting sites in San Diego. It's changing now with the mandatory diversion of food waste and food donation is changing. And also we're having more anaerobic digesters being planned and should be up and running by next year. We also have to do decentralized composting. So you should be able to tell people that they can have community gardens, they can have alternatives like Enzo showed, and I showed one like in the complex that they're doing, in the school that's doing. So that helps too. Whatever it is with the haulers is something that is with the municipality or the states that authorize that. So take a look at the franchise agreement and change it and allow private hauling of food waste for diversion up to how many tons per somebody that has a small business. So divert a little bit from the haulers and allow others to have in the business, but careful not to generate so much traffic on hauling little loads that you're going to create more problems with the emissions, the transport of it. Centralized composting is a good thing. AD is a good thing. And if you have the haulers working also with the scale, so trash is more expensive than recycling is cheaper, food waste is cheaper and food waste donation. That some of the municipalities are doing that too. That helps divert that. I don't know if I answer your question. I don't know if somebody else has more stuff to add to it.
I'll just add that if you want to make it competitive, ban it from the landfill. Once you ban it from the landfill, it sets up a whole new industry.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, like I've mentioned before, there is another, there's a few videos that have been put online about composting in New Zealand. And one of them is from the Hibiscus Coast, have done a composting project that might be interesting to check out, but we'll also probably touch on some of these at the panel discussion happening in half an hour at a local level. So there was a whole bunch of questions that Leslie has answered, like people found her presentation really useful. So do check out her answers in the Q&A panel. A question for, oh, Rick, you were going to, there was a question for Enzo about what happens to compost. I've lost it, and you were going to answer it live.
Compostable plastics.
Yeah, great.
Liners. That's a great question. Of course, we always say compostable plastics should never be considered as a solution to litter, nor are they designed to provide a solution for that. So they should not be considered to replace packaging. They should not be considered to replace straws, whatever. They are a tool connected to separate collection of the organics. That being the case, they work perfectly. In Europe, most of the composting sites, as I already said, not only accept, but they tend to promote the adoption of such systems. That's the specific case of the Italian Composting Association, which is totaling, as I told you, 7 million tons in 300 industrial composting sites. And they say, we want to have the compostable bags, otherwise people will use the ordinary plastic bags. And so this is improving the quality of compost we are producing.
So is a paper bag a composting bag? Is it a
paper bags or compostable plastics certified according to EN 13432, but there is also the North American corresponding standard to that, which is ASTM D6400. But of course, then we say, check with your own local site, because if, for instance, the local site has got a primary screen, the compostable bags would be screened out. But in most situations, the local sites, they get the primary screens in order to get rid of the ordinary plastic bags. And so the smartest approach would be to switch to compostable and get rid of the primary screens, and they will be composted.
Awesome. I think we're probably on top of most of the questions on that list. There was one at the very beginning about food waste reduction, like an edible food. In the photo that Anna showed, there looked like there was a lot of edible food in one of the images, and how could it be diverted to people in need? So do you guys, it's been touched on, but is there any more to add around food diversion?
Yeah, you know, we've been looking at that because it's a requirement, and we've been looking at the analysis, and typically it's like 40% of discards are organic, but about, it's somewhere about 3 to 10% are edible. But today with the virus and no restaurants being open, and most of the big pick your own food places are down, there's really not enough material coming out of but that's going to change next year maybe, but maybe Anna has a different story. But at this point, edible food is being limited just by the fact that the way they're delivering it.
Those loads that you saw were sites that had started the composting program, and they had a lot, so I can show them and we'll work on that. But there's like loads. One day I was there and I received a load full of orange, and they look beautiful, and I was furious. So I went to look for where they come from. They came from a food bank. So I called the food bank and said, how are you bringing this food instead of donating? So they have to test the batch that they get as a donation. It's a test that you put a needle in and find out if the food is okay. And if one of those in that batch don't show okay, they cannot donate that. So ended up in the landfill. A lot of those too that come from the border, we are very close, San Diego is very close to the Mexican border. So a lot of food that doesn't meet the standards, we can return to Mexico because they have other standards there, or fix the standards that they need, or they come here. And by the time they cross all the bureaucratic process, they cannot even be donated. They have to be landfill. So composted, I'm sorry. So those are the things that we need to look. But that slide was just to show that there's a lot that people don't realize that they could be repurposed, donating. But when we do the compost, that's a learning experience for them right on their face, that we are not imposing on them, and they understand and they want to work with us.
When we do our special events, we've been in the past, we've been doing a 60,000 people Earth Day event without fences, and we've 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of organics would go into compost. Well, about 5 years ago, we realized when they unplugged the plugs and shut down, all these vendors have all this food that was going to compost. So we just take our Tupperware down at the end of the day, fill it with the food, and we immediately drive it down to a pantry. So a lot of it just has to be on how you organize your special event and how you do things. from the small micro thing, it's a matter of, understanding if you're going to have leftover food, then where you're going to put it. And either you're going to eat it or give it to your animals or take it down to the pantry.
Okay, I think we should start wrapping up. There is just maybe one final question from Gary, which is, are areas with high landfill costs related to areas with high food waste diversion? So is there a relationship between landfill levies and food waste diversion? Enzo?
Well, actually, separate collection programs are mainly driven in Europe by the need to save on costs. But it is a very specific situation because we have got a landfill directive dating back to 1999, which mandates pre-treatment of any waste going into a landfill and requires minimizing the organics, all of which makes landfilling into a very expensive option, just like incineration. And therefore, the more you divert from landfills, the more money you save. And this is also in official public publications by, for instance, in Italy, we have got a National Environmental Protection Agency, which releases a report on waste management every year. It has got a section on economic analysis. Those districts, based on zero waste programs and maximizing separate collection, composting, and recycling, are those ones which are transferring the least cost to the taxpayers. And that's, by now, that's solid truth.
The bottom line is landfills are polluters like incineration. And as we get through the final days of this planet and the way we're having, we have to stop the pollution part of it. If the organics were diverted and not put in the landfill, you wouldn't have leachate or methane, and that would be a good thing. So my sense is we go from the point of view of greenhouse gases, reducing the impact on the climate, and we manage our organics differently. Appreciate you guys giving us time. Go ahead, Enzo.
Can I promote a program? Make an agronomist happy. I'm an agronomist and I see people diverting organics. So launch a program, make an agronomist happy. Please adopt me.
Okay, so we are going to wind up now because there's another panel happening in a few minutes. So thank you guys so much. Like it's been a very thorough look at lots of different parts of America and also Europe. So thank you guys so much. And the engagement with the session's been really great, some really interesting questions. And I think you've had to share lots of different documents and stuff, Leslie. So thanks for doing that. Okay, so thank you guys very much. In terms of the program coming up, we've got another organics focused session happening at 10. And then tomorrow we've got a panel discussion on zero waste culture. And like I've mentioned before, there's video content going up onto the website every day. So there is one other session I need to mention, and that's with the Zero Waste International Alliance crew happening tomorrow again at 8. So similar format to today's, we will have like a lot more presentations and then some questions at the end. So thanks everybody, and see you again soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye everybody.
Bye.
Peace, love.